Hello everyone, this is DadBod Tactical Gamer. It's been a few days since I've recorded. I took the family up on vacation, had a great time away at the cottage, but getting back at it, wanted to get a video out to you guys about Warhammer Underworlds Online. So far, a lot of my content's been focused on the Steelhearts and the Orks, and I've finally ventured into the Skaven, experimenting now with making them work. So I've got a gameplay footage here for you. Go up against the Orks. A little bit of an unconventional game, but I hope you enjoy it. I hope it inspires you to play the Skaven and just shows you really the capacity and the potential that they have. They're definitely a threat. They've got a lot of great utility. Their fast mobility and resurrection mechanic are just incredible. So I'm going to showcase for you guys my time with them. So hope you enjoy. Alright, so you can see here that I lost the board roll, so I'm only going to get to place 2 objectives, but I did get the advantage of being able to slant board him. And the whole idea here is I separated the boards to give myself as much distance as I can from the Orks, because they are a punishing warband to go into combat with, and I'm just too fragile of a warband to let that happen. So the whole concept here was to create a lot of space. You'll notice I placed my leader very safely behind the blocked hexes, and then deployed the rest of my fighters in the further edges of the board, just to make sure that I'm not going to lose any fighters too early in the round. So I discarded my starting objectives, because it was all about holding objectives that were in his end, and I just was not happy with it. And I got 2 cards that if my leader can take a fighter out of action, I'd score it, which made me feel pretty good because my leader hits hard and I expected him to come into my end. Now the crazy part is he didn't. He decided to just play and draw extra power cards, and he kind of just sat there not doing anything, which really surprised me. So instead, I used my first 2 activations just to move fighters onto objectives. I only had objective 4 in my end, and objective 3 is sitting right around 3 of his Orks, and I got to figure out a way to get there. So I finally decided to draw a ploy myself, and in doing that really gave me a bit of capacity to make something happen here in this game. So I'm scanning around, trying to figure out what I'm going to do, draw the power card, I get confusion. Now I'm feeling really good about getting onto that objective 3, because in case he somehow stands on it, I'd be fine. But my opponent finally makes a play into my end, and now is when I go nuts with the ploys. So I use Hidden Pass to get onto objective 3. Then I use Confused Priorities to bring objective 3 into my end. This wasn't really critical, but I just felt better scoring Tactical Supremacy 3 and 4 if I had objective 3 and 4 in my end. Then I play Illusionary Fighter to put my leader 1 space away from Gurzag. What this allows me to do is I can attack him in the next round without having to move, and he is forced to have to charge me. So I can keep making multiple attacks while he has to commit to charging and putting his fighter out of action. So in the end phase, I score those cards for holding those objectives, get a nice 3 glory start, lets me put Awakened Weapon onto my leader, making him a lot more lethal in round 2, and draw into Change of Tactics and hold objective 4, which is perfect because 4 is in my end, and I know that I can go on guard, especially because I drew a ploy that lets me place a fighter on guard. It was really positive, too, that my opponent scored nothing, so I was feeling pretty comfortable at this point in the game. So, analyzing the board, I get to go first because I win the roll-off, and I decide to start popping attacks off on Gurzag. My first one is successful, dealing 3 really nice damage. However, he plays my turn and gets in close to try and punch me. Thankfully, I rolled a successful defense, which left me in really good shape. So here I was thinking, okay, well, I'm still just probably going to use Sidestep, push away, but he then plays Brutal and Cunning and pops even further away from me. So at this point, I decide to pop Expendable. Really what I'm trying to do here, this card allows me to remove a fighter if he suffers an attack that could take him out of action. I do a damage to the enemy, and he can't score a glory. And then I place my leader on guard because I'm going to need to score that Change of Tactics down the road. and I also decide to sidestep away from Gurzag. Sidestepping away forces him now to have to charge, and he can't just sit there and make an attack and then charge later. I really want to limit the amount of times his leader, which is his most powerful fighter and is inspired, I need to limit the amount of times that he's going to attack. So I popped Acrobatic onto my leader, which is going to give him an extra defense dice all game. So now he's re-rolling his attacks, and he's a lot harder to take out of action with 3 defense dice. Now, we go to activation 2 for him, and he makes a charge. He does roll a crit and pops my Lurking Skaven out of action, scoring Advancing Strike. At this point, he closed the gap. It's now only 3-2. He's getting to equip a bit of gear, and I'm not too happy because he's standing on objective 4, and I need to be on that objective. I was really hoping that my leader could charge in and score Change of Tactics, Scritch is the greatest, yes, and a glory for the kill, getting 3 glory. I couldn't roll the critical. He gets a crit defense, so I only score 1 glory, and I'm still now stuck with this problem that Gurzag is on my objective. So I figured, well, I got 2 activations left. Maybe I can attack him, knock him off, and move on. But my opponent plays a little bit of a forecasting tell, and he places Bonecutta, his orc in the back, on guard. So right away that signals to me he's going to try and score Change of Tactics. I don't want him to get any more glory. I don't want him to tie this game. So instead of making any kind of move on Gurzag, I decide to run away. I did not want Bonecutta to get a kill and score Change of Tactics and have him tie the game up. So I ran away, figured that was the best call, equipped some more gear onto my fighters. I'm not looking good for scoring any glory this round, but my whole strategy here is it's not as important to score glory if you can completely shut down and deny your opponent. So I made that strategic call, and it really played out well for me. He does make a charge with Basha, and there's not much you can do when your opponent rolls a double critical. That's how dice games go, and he picks up another glory, closing that gap down to 1. So, back to my plan. I got to get Gurzag off this objective. I pop him with 1 hit, get him off, but I don't have any cards in my hand that are going to allow me to stand on objective 4. My other 2 cards are score immediatelys for taking fighters out, but the round's over. I score nothing. Not looking good. So he moves into range. I score nothing here. I decided to discard Precise Use of Force because it's going to be too hard for me to score, and discard Light Armor because I need to draw 5 more cards to get a lot of tech into my hand. So on to round 3. At this point now, I'm really just focused on taking his leader out. I do not want him doing any more damage to me. I was really worried actually that his leader would be able to one-shot my leader. He only does 3 damage, but there's cards out there like Trap and Pit Trap where he could really play that ploy for extra damage and I'd be out of action. Thankfully, he decided to go first, and I'm kind of scared, a little nervous, wondering what he's going to do. I'm really thankful he does not decide to charge my leader. Ultimately, I think he should have gone for that. If my leader's out of action, it does limit my ability to resurrect fighters. And he goes for Kirk, and Kirk comes up big with a double critical defense. Really, really happy that I got that. Added a lot of extra strategy into how the rest of this game's going to go. So right now I'm still just focused. Take his leader out of action. I need to get it done. Need the kill. And I do. I score Scritch is the greatest. Yes, yes. I get 2 glory, which puts me in a nice strong position. So I drew into Supremacy, which meant holding 3 objectives. And I'm all in my end with only 2 objectives. So I played that ploy to let me resurrect one of my fighters, and the rest of the game now is me being focused on scoring objectives. Tactical Supremacy 1 and 2 are both deep in his end. Hold Objective 4 is in my end, and Supremacy, I just need to be standing on 3 objectives. So I had to be smart here because I needed him to commit to these charges. so that I didn't go onto an objective and then he just charge and knock me off. So thankfully, Bone Cutter makes a charge. That's one down. I'm feeling pretty good. I decided to move on to objective 2. That probably wasn't the best decision, but I had to get onto an objective, and I really wanted objective 4, so I was hoping to get Basha to charge before I get onto objective 4. That way I can move onto it safely. So at this point, it's his go. I'm really trying to figure out, is he going to activate Haka or is he going to activate Basha? And that's going to dictate what I do next. He does go after Kirk, who comes up with his second double critical defense in a row. The odds of that happening are just crazy. So luck was on my side with my crafty little Skaven. Now that he had done that, I felt really good about holding objective 4, but I decided to basically run my leader in as bait. I'm going to move him onto objective 1 and attack Haka, hoping that he's going to try to make that a charge back at my leader. The reason I did this is because my leader has the greatest chance of rolling a very successful defense because he's got 3 defense dice on him due to the upgrade that I applied. And if I'm going to not get knocked off an objective, my leader's got the best chance of doing it. So I zoom in because I know that's really his only option. He could have charged over at the lurking, which he should have done. But he charges my leader exactly like I had planned, exactly how I wanted it to happen. And now I move on to objective 4, and I'm holding 4 objectives and all of the ones that I need to score. So I score my passive glory on my gear that I had equipped. I score all 3 objectives, and I take a dominating 14-5 win over the Orks. So there you have it. The Skaven are crafty. Man, are they fast. If you take the right utility cards, you are going to be able to score a lot of very, very fun glory. You can go for kills. You can go for holding objectives. They're just a great warband to play. I hope it inspires you. If you have any questions on deck building, reach out to me in the comments. I would love to connect with anyone about this game and give them any coaching advice or tips. Thanks so much, guys.